What began as quiet tension, brushed off by many as minor disagreements or personality clashes, has now escalated into something far more serious and far more consequential. Wanda has taken the situation to a level that few expected, transforming what once looked like social media friction into a full-scale legal confrontation. This is no longer about cryptic posts, side comments, or public shade. This is about a courtroom, evidence, sworn testimony, and real-world consequences. The moment Wanda decided to move this conflict into a legal setting, the entire dynamic changed. Suddenly, opinions were no longer enough. Feelings were no longer the driving force. What mattered now were facts, documents, and proof. And according to those who have followed the situation closely, Wanda arrived prepared, focused, and deliberate. The implications of this shift are massive, especially for Melody, whose public image has long been defined by composure, strategy, and control. For years, Melody has been viewed as someone who carefully crafted her life and brand with intention. She presented herself as strong, intelligent, and resilient, someone who thought several steps ahead and rarely allowed emotions to dictate her public behavior. Fans admired her ability to remain calm under pressure, to stay silent when provoked, and to focus on long-term growth rather than short-term reactions. This image of stability became central to her identity, not just as a public figure, but as a businesswoman and mother. However, even the most carefully constructed image can be tested when evidence enters the conversation. A courtroom does not operate on perception or admiration. It operates on verifiable facts. And when those facts are presented publicly, they have the power to disrupt narratives that took years to build. The tension between Wanda and Melody did not appear overnight, nor did it begin with a single dramatic moment. Instead, it developed slowly, quietly, and often out of public view. Over time, fans began noticing subtle signs, comments that felt loaded, exchanges that carried underlying frustration, and moments on social media that hinted at unresolved conflict. At first, many dismissed these moments as harmless or exaggerated, assuming that any friction was temporary or insignificant. Melody's calm demeanor reinforced that belief. She rarely responded impulsively and maintained her focus on her family, her business, and her personal growth. Wanda, however, took a very different approach. She was outspoken, direct, and unfiltered, often saying what others only implied. Her willingness to address issues publicly made her both admired and criticized, depending on perspective. As time passed, what began as small disagreements evolved into deeply personal disputes, involving family dynamics, reputation, and emotional boundaries. Once conflicts reach that level, resolution becomes far more complicated. When the situation entered the courtroom, it marked a clear turning point. Wanda made a conscious decision not to continue the battle on social media, where narratives are driven by emotion, speculation, and incomplete information. Instead, she chose a formal legal setting, where claims must be supported by documentation and testimony. In court, Wanda presented her case with precision. There were no dramatic outbursts, no attempts to gain sympathy through emotional appeals. Instead, she relied on tangible evidence, documents, screenshots, audio recordings, and witness statements, carefully organized to tell a cohesive story. Those present in the courtroom described a noticeable shift in energy as the evidence was presented. Even individuals who had long supported Melody reportedly paused, reconsidering what they were seeing and hearing. When someone known for being unshakable appears momentarily caught off guard, it sends a powerful message. It suggests that this confrontation is not rooted in gossip, but in something far more substantial. What makes this situation particularly impactful is the contrast between Melody's public image and the narrative Wanda presented through evidence. Melody has always been associated with strategic thinking and meticulous planning. She built her brand carefully, aligning her public persona with values of strength, integrity, and stability. For many fans, she represented resilience in the face of adversity. Wanda's evidence, however, challenged that perception by suggesting patterns of behavior that had remained hidden from public view. Rather than focusing on isolated incidents, the evidence aimed to show consistency, repeated actions that painted a different picture from the one fans had embraced. This approach made the revelations harder to dismiss. Patterns imply intent, and intent carries weight in both legal and public contexts. The public nature of the courtroom proceedings adds another layer to the complexity of the situation. Once a legal dispute becomes public, privacy becomes fragile. Every movement, facial expression, and reaction is scrutinized. Courtroom footage is replayed, paused, and analyzed. Social media commentary explodes, with fans and critics dissecting every detail in search of meaning. The courtroom transforms into a stage where perception and reality intersect in real time. Wanda's decision to rely on evidence rather than emotional appeals positions her as someone focused on credibility and seriousness. In contrast, Melody's response, marked by silence, has sparked intense debate. Some view her silence as a strategic choice, a way to maintain dignity and avoid making statements that could be misinterpreted or used against her. Others interpret it as hesitation, uncertainty, or even vulnerability. In the court of popular opinion, silence is rarely neutral. As the case unfolds, the pressure on Melody extends far beyond the courtroom. Her family, children, and business interests are now under intense scrutiny. Allegations, even when unproven, can have lasting effects. In industries where image is closely tied to opportunity, reputational damage can ripple outward, impacting partnerships, endorsements, and public trust. Melody now faces critical decisions. She must determine whether to publicly deny the claims, present counter-evidence, or pursue a settlement to limit further exposure. Each option carries its own risks, and timing is crucial. Legal proceedings move forward regardless of public readiness, and public opinion often forms faster than facts can be fully examined. Wanda's supporters see this moment as long overdue. They view her decision to present evidence in court as an act of courage and accountability. To them, this confrontation validates long-held suspicions that Melody's public persona may not fully reflect her private behavior. They praise Wanda for choosing a formal legal route rather than continuing a cycle of online disputes. Melody's loyal supporters, however, see the situation very differently. They argue that Wanda's actions stem from a long-standing fixation and that the allegations may be exaggerated or misinterpreted. For them, Melody's silence represents strength and restraint, not guilt. Social media has become a battleground where both sides present arguments, share clips, and revisit old interviews in an effort to support their perspectives. This rapid formation of opinion highlights how quickly narratives can solidify, often before all evidence has been evaluated. Beyond the legal arguments, the emotional stakes of this conflict are immense. For Melody, the experience of having years of careful planning and image management challenged publicly can be deeply destabilizing. Public scrutiny amplifies stress, leaving little room for private processing or healing. For Wanda, the pressure lies in ensuring that every piece of evidence presented is accurate, verifiable, and compelling. Any mistake could undermine her credibility and weaken her case. Both women are navigating a high-pressure environment with long-term consequences that extend well beyond the immediate outcome of the case. The emotional toll of such public conflicts is often underestimated, yet it plays a significant role in how individuals respond and adapt. This situation also serves as a broader commentary on the complexities of living a public life. When personal disputes become public, boundaries blur and privacy erodes. Actions that might otherwise remain private are interpreted through a public lens, often stripped of nuance. Melody's decision to remain quiet may be a calculated legal strategy, but it also leaves space for speculation. Wanda's choice to pursue formal legal action demonstrates confidence in her claims, but it also exposes her to scrutiny and criticism. This clash between preparation and perception, strategy and emotion defines the current moment. Legal battles in public settings rarely remain confined to legal questions alone. They expose relationships, alliances, and patterns of behavior that can reshape public understanding. As the case continues, every detail gains significance. Documents are examined not just for legal relevance, but for narrative impact. Witness statements are scrutinized, past decisions are reevaluated, and old footage is reinterpreted in light of new information. For Melody, this means that actions once seen as strategic or protective may now be questioned. For Wanda, it means maintaining consistency and clarity in her presentation. The ripple effects of this conflict extend outward, affecting not only the individuals involved, but also those connected to them. Friends, associates, and collaborators may find themselves drawn into the narrative, willingly or not. What followed had fans holding their breath. Melody, the woman who built a reputation for staying composed, for rising above chaos, for keeping her emotions in check even when provoked, was suddenly standing in a situation that could flip her entire narrative upside down. This wasn't about being the bigger person anymore. This wasn't about ignoring the noise. Wanda didn't just show up with attitude or accusations this time, she showed up with proof. And according to whispers coming from inside that courtroom, the evidence was strong enough to make even some of Melody's most loyal defenders pause. That's what made this moment so unsettling. When the people who always had your back start asking uncomfortable questions, you know the ground is shifting beneath you. And what scared people the most was realizing that this wasn't just about hurt feelings anymore. This was about reputations, money, credibility, and ultimately who the public would believe once everything was laid out. Before anyone rushes to pick a side, before deciding who's right or wrong, it's important to slow down and really understand how this situation even reached this point. Because this mess didn't start yesterday, and it definitely didn't end with one court appearance. People have been watching Melody for years. They've followed her journey through reality TV, through personal struggles, through moments of growth and reinvention. When you really look at the timeline, the question becomes deeper than just one conflict. Has there been time for maturity, for healing, for growth? Has enough time passed for someone to truly evolve and become a better version of themselves? Melody didn't become who she is overnight. Long before the cameras, before the applause, before fans labeled her strong and unbothered, she was just a woman trying to build something stable for herself and her family. She was seen as driven, focused, and strategic, the kind of person who planned 10 steps ahead while everyone else was still reacting emotionally. That's why so many people connected to her. Melody represented growth. She represented discipline. She represented a woman who refused to let chaos dictate the direction of her life. Even when things around her were messy, she tried to remain intentional and controlled. That image wasn't accidental. It was built carefully over time, and it earned her a loyal fan base that stood firmly behind her, defending her no matter what was said online. But here's the thing about reality TV mixing with real life. When families get involved, when egos collide, and when resentment quietly stacks up over the years, even the calmest person can find themselves backed into a corner. And that's where Wanda comes into the picture. Wanda has never been quiet. From the very beginning, she's been outspoken, blunt, and unapologetic. Some people admired that about her, calling it keeping it real. Others felt she crossed lines that should never be touched, especially when children and family were mentioned. Over time, the tension between Wanda and Melody stopped being playful shade or surface-level disagreement. It became deeply personal. This wasn't just about words anymore. It was about pride. It was about feeling disrespected. It was about two women who believed they were wronged in completely different ways. And because everything happened in public, there was no room for quiet resolution. Every comment lived forever online. Every side-eye was replayed. Every rumor was dissected. For a long time, Melody appeared to be taking the high road. She stayed polished. She stayed focused on her business ventures. She stayed quiet when others were loud. That silence made her look mature and above the drama. But silence has a downside. When one person keeps talking long enough, their version of events starts to feel like the only version. And Wanda talked. A lot. Over and over again, she claimed that Melody wasn't as innocent as she appeared. She suggested that behind closed doors, Melody was pulling strings, stirring tension, and then stepping back to let others take the blame. At first, most people dismissed those claims. They called it jealousy. They called it bitterness. They said Wanda was doing too much for attention. But Wanda kept repeating the same thing: "I've got proof." And usually, when someone keeps saying that, people assume it's empty talk, until it isn't. Things really started to crack after one of their most explosive public confrontations, the kind that had security stepping in and phones recording every second. People expected Wanda to do what she'd always done: go live, vent, and fan the flames. Instead, she went quiet, and silence from someone like Wanda raised immediate red flags. Soon after, rumors started circulating about legal paperwork being filed, court dates being scheduled, and witnesses being contacted. Wanda wasn't preparing for another argument, she was preparing a case. And when she finally walked into that courtroom, expectations were high. Many thought it would be chaotic. What nobody expected was how prepared she appeared to be. According to multiple sources, Wanda came armed with documents, messages, and materials that allegedly showed a very different side of Melody. Text messages that suggested manipulation, audio recordings that hinted at intimidation, witness statements from people claiming Melody behaved completely differently when cameras weren't around. None of this has been fully released to the public yet, but the reactions inside that courtroom told their own story. People say the energy shifted almost immediately. Lawyers leaned forward, expressions changed, and Melody, who is known for being calm and calculated, reportedly looked caught off guard. That detail alone sent social media into overdrive. Melody is known for being prepared, so if even for a moment she wasn't ready, people started asking why. What made Wanda's claims even more unsettling was the level of detail. She wasn't just accusing Melody of talking mess or being shady, she was allegedly pointing to patterns of behavior. She claimed Melody knew exactly how to push buttons without getting her hands dirty, that she would provoke situations, then step back and let others look emotional or irrational. Wanda's argument was simple but dangerous. Melody's public image was carefully crafted, and the truth existed off-camera. If that evidence holds up, this isn't just embarrassing, it's damaging, because Melody's brand has been built on strength, integrity, and growth. If fans start believing that she was playing games behind the scenes, that foundation begins to crack. That's why taking this to court instead of social media was such a power move. It sent a clear message. This wasn't about clout. This wasn't about attention. This was about standing on claims with evidence. And now, Melody's response has been silence. No emotional posts, no long explanations. And that silence has divided fans completely. Some believe she's being smart, letting her lawyers handle everything behind the scenes. Others think she's scrambling, trying to figure out her next move, because at this point, her options are limited. She can deny everything and claim the evidence is being taken out of context. She can fire back with her own receipts, or she can try to settle quietly to prevent further damage. But once something enters a courtroom, it rarely stays private. Leaks happen, narratives form. Public opinion hardens before all the facts are known. Social media is already in chaos. Wanda's supporters are calling this the moment the mask finally slips. Melody supporters are calling it a setup and a long-planned attack. Old clips are being replayed, interviews are being reanalyzed, moments that once seemed harmless are now being questioned. And beyond all of that noise, there are real consequences at stake. This affects Melody's family, her children, her business deals, and her mental health. It also affects Wanda, who is risking backlash, criticism, and credibility by pushing this as far as she has. What makes this situation even heavier is how it pulls other people into the mess. Friends are being pressured to choose sides. Past conversations are being dragged back into the spotlight. Trust starts to erode when everyone wonders who might end up being called as a witness next. And let's be real, court doesn't care about edits or fan favorites. It cares about facts. If Wanda's evidence is strong, Melody could face consequences that go far beyond embarrassment: financial losses, legal restrictions, long-term damage to her brand. And if Melody responds with her own evidence, this could turn into a long, exhausting battle that drains everyone involved. At its core, this confrontation raises fundamental questions about perception and reality. Public personas are powerful, but they are also vulnerable. They rely on consistency, trust, and limited access to private behavior. When evidence challenges those personas, the resulting tension can be profound. Wanda's strategy emphasizes the power of documentation and structure, suggesting that truth is best revealed through methodical presentation rather than emotional appeal. Melody's challenge lies in navigating both the legal system and the court of public opinion simultaneously, where outcomes are shaped by facts on one side and feelings on the other. Balancing transparency with discretion and strategy with authenticity is no small task. Ultimately, this conflict is about more than winning or losing a legal battle. It is about control of narrative, credibility, and influence. Wanda seeks to disrupt an established image by introducing evidence that challenges it. Melody seeks to defend her integrity while managing the personal and professional consequences of intense scrutiny. Every decision made from this point forward will shape how the story is remembered. The courtroom has become the stage where reputations are tested, alliances are revealed, and influence is contested. Audiences remain captivated not only because of the individuals involved, but because the situation reflects broader themes of power, image, and accountability. As events continue to unfold, uncertainty remains. Melody may choose to respond publicly, present counter-evidence, or maintain her silence. Wanda will likely continue to rely on evidence and structured narrative to support her claims. The interplay between fact, perception, and emotion will define the trajectory of this story. In public conflicts of this magnitude, perception can sometimes weigh as heavily as fact, creating a delicate balance between truth and image. This confrontation serves as a reminder that even the strongest public personas can be challenged, and that evidence has the power to reshape narratives in ways that social media alone cannot. The world continues to watch, analyze, and debate, knowing that each new development brings the story one step closer to its defining outcome.